Morning, chickens. Hi Gareth. Well, as you can probably see, my phone's broken by this weird border all around the outside. The screen fell off the other day. I've had to fix it back on, but it keeps coming loose. I wanted to show you a quick tour of the shop, and I'll flip cameras to do that. The shed is actually divided into 3 areas. The first area here, you can see I've got some plants growing and things like that, and compost on the floor. And we've got a cupboard here that's got some clear vinyl gloves for doing messy work. And we've got in here things like lawn mowers and stuff like that. That's kind of the wet work area with the concrete floor, where we can just make a mess without worrying about it. We have a general sort of tool area for heavier tools, so there's anything that won't really go comfortably into a cupboard. Decade resistor on the wall for doing anything high powered. A stage for working on videos. Some of the bigger shop tools. Then 3D printers in here too. I'm just waiting for another machine to set that up so that I can use it again. It was living in the house until recently, but it makes more sense for it to be out here. There's a Raspberry Pi here. I did have a go at running it from a Raspberry Pi, but it's not great. This old bandsaw, you can probably see if I squeeze around the back, there are a number of pulleys and belts and things there. I'm not happy with that. I don't like that on the surface, but at the same time, I don't want to get rid of that bandsaw because it's actually got a very deep throat. You know, it's got a very deep throat on the for cutting, so you can cut well over a foot on this, which for a machine that size is very good. So what I think I'm going to do is remove it from the plate that it's on at the moment and just bolt it down directly onto this work surface here. I drop all the things today. So onto this work surface here, then move this motor, which is also bolted down, to underneath the surface. And by doing that, it will get the motor out of the way and I can box it in. Oh yeah, underneath as well, this is a new thing I've just bought, is a compressor and a set of power tools. That's a first for me, but it is incredibly useful. And a good thing about those kind of compressors is that the power tools that attach to them are much cheaper and much more powerful. So for example, the nail gun can do 2-inch nails, which a lot of the little electric ones can't do. I have the messy section of the desk that I haven't tidied up yet. I've only just got the stuff in to the places that they're supposed to be. Not everything's connected up yet even. Some of the things haven't got plugs on. This is obviously where I do electronics and things like that. There's probably a pile of electronic bits in there. Oh yeah, these are some parts for where I'm working on the lighting system in the shed. So we've got the lights there. I've made a short video about that anyway, on the YouTube channel. They're solar powered, and there's a 240 watt panel on the roof. That's eventually going to be wired into the mains electricity as well. At the moment, it's just running with a single battery down there temporarily, and you can see there's a panel under there with a charger and some Arduino and Raspberry Pi electronics running that. Oh, incidentally, this little drill press that I didn't mention, that's 12 volt too. I haven't wired that in yet, but I converted it from a 240 volt to 12 volt and stuck a speed control on it and a resettable fuse. It's actually much better than this one, because if I get to the side, you can probably see this one's got a very short hang on, let me try and open this out. This one has a very short throat on it, so there is 4.5 inches there you can get before you hit the back post, whereas this one, if I drop this piece drops out of the way on the end there, but you have 6-7 inches there before you hit the post. So that's actually a much nicer drill. it just doesn't quite take the same size drill bit. But for most of the work I do, I tend to want small drills anyway, so it's not a problem. But back to this bench, anyway. So we have assorted electrical bits and pieces. There's a solid state relay there to control the mains. We have, just sitting on top of the plug there, we have Alexa. Hello, Alexa. Hello.
Hello.
She's not great. Her hearing's not very good. I did consider putting a sort of a built-in dot into the Raspberry Pi under the desk there, but I really didn't want to overtax the Raspberry Pi for what it's doing, because it's going to be controlling some cameras as well, so that I've got a permanent recording of what's happening in the shed, and I didn't want to overload the thing and end up with skipping video. That's a project for the future. Oh, up in these cupboards you can see I've put some various pinouts of things. There's a Arduino Mega there, there's a Leonardo, there's a Raspberry Pi. Inside we have a collection of magazines. Horowitz and Hill, The Art of Electronics, that's always a good one. Up there we've got some sort of garden chemicals as well, just to keep them out of the way. There are no children running around, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't keep them out of the way safe. We also have the glues up there out of the way, assorted brackets and screws, various books, transistor guides, data books, TTLs. There we go. Tank Girl, obviously.
Very small jewellery making tools in there, so the small hammers and things. Just adding closures and wires, there we go. And we have all sorts of electronics things there. We've got some computer power supplies that I've converted. One of them I bridged out the voltage.
Computer power supplies that I've converted. One of them I bridged out the voltage regulator on this. There's the way these circuits regulate is they generally have a potential divider with two, obviously, resistor top and bottom, and then tapping to take the current. If you fiddle about with those values, you can subtly change the amount of voltage coming out. So I changed that voltage from the 12 volt output rail at 30 amps now does 14.2 volt, which is great for charging a battery. There we go, my phone's warning me my battery's about to run out now. This one, I'm sure you've seen these kind of conversions before, where we've got 5 volt ground, 12 volt and 3.3 volt. They're handy to have. I know I've got a little bench supply here, which is great, but I modified this as well to have a 10 turn pot for the voltage selection rather than just a single sort of 3/4 turn. Gives me a bit finer control over what I'm doing. Underneath there we've got an SMD solder station, an air gun. That's, as you can see, broken, and I haven't got around to repairing that yet. And at the top here we have a new version, which is much quieter. This has a really big sort of compressor pump inside it, which makes a huge noise when it's running. If I'm trying to do anything on the camera, I think that's going to be far too loud. So this one just uses a little fan. There's just a little fan grill there at the back, just a little tiny sort of 40mm fan. It's much quieter. In fact, you can barely hear the thing when it's on. And it also has a built-in soldering iron. So that's just sort of my portable one for when I'm taking pictures and things. We've got assorted fuses, battery leads and things like that. An iron, medical tubing, bits and bobs, the usual things, 3D printer, filament, tape, a few bits of electronic stuff. Not even sure what's in here. Oh, there's some handles, because I'm still putting cabinets into the drawer, so there's some handles. A few Amazon dash buttons, cameras. All my measuring tools are in here as well, the fine measuring tools, because you never know what might get dropped on, and some of them aren't. They're not super calibrated, but they're quite sensitively calibrated. All of these benches along this side of the room are supported by 4x2 timber, and they have supports underneath, and they have 18mm OSB. as a surface, and then on top of that, on this bench, I've put some hardboard as well because it gives a smoother surface. The reason I haven't used something like work surface, which a lot of people use on a kitchen worktop, is that it's very slippy, and if you're working, say, over here, and you want to put a piece of wood down on it and just saw something, there's enough grip here to just hold the piece in place while you're doing it for a small piece, whereas on a kitchen worktop where it's Formica or resin coated, it will just slide right off, and it's a little bit unsafe to be putting sort of heavy tools down onto a surface that's slippy like that. I'm not a huge fan of it. But with these surfaces, the OSB does just rest on top of the 4x2s, so when these get too battered, I can just take them off and replace them with new pieces. We have all of the usual kind of screwdrivers and socket wrenches and things that everybody would expect. A solder extractor, because we do need to use them. Some of the solder I still use has lead in, because it's so old, but I'm a purist. I think it flows much more nicely when it's got lead in, and for certain jobs it does make life a lot easier. The new silver solder is okay for most jobs, but a lot of the repairs and things that you do, it's very difficult to get that solder to melt with the other solder on the board. We have a few remnants of an earlier project. These are remnants for the chicken door that I did, which you can just see out of the window there. You can see temporarily shy chicken and just the door there that automatically opens and closes. We have an IKEA kitchen hook, a kitchen rail system. These are only £3 or £4, but they're great for putting your pliers on. And you can also get things like this little shelf that hangs down off them, so you can sort things. A few little pieces of clamps and things, assorted screwdrivers and security bits and things. Really simple. Just drill the holes in the a piece of wood and stick it to the wall just to keep things out of the way. Up there, I've got a magnetic bar that just helps me keep a few things handy. Because you never know when you need a small hammer or something when you're just trying to tap something apart. So I've got jeweler's hammers up there, and also tape measures and things like that. At the moment, all of the power is coming into the shed. The mains electrical power is coming into the shed through this white cable here, which disappears under the table, comes out and goes to an extension lead that plugs in just outside the house. That's obviously not an ideal solution, but what we're going to do in the future is it will come out of this socket and connect into an inverter that will be plugged into the solar power system underneath. Those batteries will go outside. There'll be about another 5 batteries attached there. They will go outside in a separate mini shed, and the whole shed will be completely solar powered. We have plenty of 240 volt electrical sockets in here because you can never have too many. Alexa, trigger the shed lights.
Sending it to it.
And I've also wired it so that I can control these lights, there we go, through the internet if I need to. I've usually got a little app on my phone that I use, but and they allow me to control the lights individually, so I can just have, say, this bench light on but the other lights off. But I included basic voice control just so that we can turn them all on and off without having to have our phone with us. And if we don't have the phone either, or the internet is down, there is a little green button on the top of the box there. Managed to see it just about there. There's a little green button there, and that turns all of the lights on and off as well. The reason I just turned those lights off is you can see if you look up on the ceiling, it looks like a very bad sci-fi set at the moment because it's not finished. We had to take down part of the insulation to put up the solar panel. Can we see? Yeah, I don't know, you can just see there's some bolts just up in the corner just there. Those bolts control, they hook down the solar panel. So this all needs to be fitted back up again. At the moment it's just hanging down, and then there needs to be something over the top. We've tried 2 or 3 things, none of which we're happy with. We've tried hardboard and we've tried cladding. In fact, there's still a bit of cladding up there, just at the corner, and we're not really taken by any of those things. We need to find something else that's a little bit better. We might try some thin plywood next, I think. Yeah. Oh, I've recently had a problem with this window leaking, which is my own fault. I mean, I did build the windows and I made a rookie mistake. In that you can see the water just there is holding, because there is no slope on this. There's no slope on this wood to let the water drain away. So I need to, at some point, which is going to be quite awkward to do retroactively, grind a slope into that. It's not a huge problem. I say it's leaking. There's a very small amount of water comes through when it rains. It generally just gets wet to about here. You can see there's a little mark on the surface there. But at the end of the day, this is, you know, this is a shed. This isn't a living space. It doesn't matter if a little bit of water gets in somewhere. Oh, we did. The only thing that might matter is that if it rains so much that on the 2/3 of the shed that have this flooring, on the 2/3 of the shed that have this flooring, it's possible that it will warp it if it gets wet. Realistically, that's not going to happen, I don't think. And even if it did, this flooring was on special offer. I think it cost something like £30 to do this whole area of floor. Oh, and some extra for the rubber trim I used along the edges, but that's all. Well, I think that's probably everything. That's the main part of the shed anyway. I'll be starting doing some proper projects in here soon, and as I go along I'll be adding more bits of shelves and doors and cupboards and things in.